These textile jobs that were the focus of the CWP movement have now gone to China, which is governed by Chinese leaders, by communist leaders. Our community should bring together its best minds and its most caring and loving people to refocus on the issues surrounding economic growth, education, and all of the other components, such as safety, and a clean and healthy environment that make for a good quality of life for all of us. We need to demonstrate in this city our commitment to fairness and justice. Katrina has reminded us that race and poverty are still factors that must be addressed when we seek solutions to the problems and challenges that we face in this country today. The problem of the economic situation of blue-collar workers was a concern in 1979, and it is a major concern in 2005, and we need to work together to solve it once and for all. Maybe this process will allow our whole city to be transformed based on hope, our collective wisdom, and a spirit of cooperation, trust, and based in love. In everything we do, in all of the visioning and planning that takes place, we must use both our hearts and our minds. There are many things today that are better than it was in 1979. More people of color are being elected to public office. There are more people of color in corporate America and in various businesses and industry, etc. There are more department heads working for our city of Greensboro. And while I am delighted about all of the positive changes and the inclusiveness, I need to let you know that a few weeks ago, I attended the State of the Piedmont, which was held at the Airport Marriott, where Winston-Salem, High Point, and Greensboro come together, sharing the state of this area. The only people of color on the program from any of these cities was Malachi House, and they sang the national anthem. So inclusiveness is still not a part of much of the leadership's cognitive map.
In our country, we have had a tremendous struggle to deal with issues of race, poverty, and the immediacy of those things as they relate to almost every major public policy that we make. Education, economic development, housing, all those things.
I think we must continue to teach young people about civic engagement, for sure. We have to do it with the kinds of panels and commissions assembled here, where we say we have made errors in the past and we're trying to see how we can forego repeating some of those errors. But I think that we have to not be so quick to identify a few people who speak for the community. We must do many innovative things to pull in regular folks onto boards, commissions, committees, if you will, because we are often too happy and comfortable because we've identified, in this case, 5 black people that everybody knows, and they show up on everything. And we've got to understand that is not acting in good faith. And if we have to find other ways to find other people, we're going to have to start doing that. The community is not going to get engaged when you're only relying on 10 names that represent them. It has never worked, and I doubt that it ever will. The seriousness for which all of our community problems are addressed. We talked about education, what's going on in the schools, the high dropout rates, and not just dropout rates, really the very poor level of education, period. Somehow we have to be big enough to put that on the front page of the newspaper. and have continuing coverage, and to say as a community, nah, it's not good enough, and not worry about whether it's just not good enough for that person's child, but is it not good enough for my own?
The disaster in New Orleans revealed with remarkable clarity how our systems, our institutional structures in America impose a terrible injustice on impoverished people of color. Learning from New Orleans, I think we can look at our systems here in Greensboro, our institutional structures in 1979, before then, and after then. Hopefully, we may be ready to recognize that our systems also impose a terrible injustice on many in our community. If the police experience problems with some communities and put themselves into those communities to help solve the problems, it makes sense that in reverse, a community may experience problems with the police and wish to respond to them. Just as the police establish a presence in a community, the community may feel it needs a presence within the police.
We know, and I know that you're asking about this kind of thing, that when you have these traumatic, wrenching, violent experiences in a community, there is obvious damage, although there are always people who obviously want to cover up that damage. And so the question is, how do you heal a deeply wounded community? And I don't think you do it by ignoring what happened or pretending it didn't happen. That merely exacerbates the anger and the hostility of people who've been brutalized by whatever forces, including forces of the state, including the police, including the district attorney's office in our case. There's something remarkably redemptive about a community surrounding people who have been injured, in your case, murdered, and fighting over whatever course of time for justice. You're never going to get justice. You're never going to get healing. You're never going to get reconciliation. You're never going to get peace without justice.
I think we need to allow all of ourselves to be broken to the process. I think we need to submit ourselves to the truth. I think we need to commit to staying with it. I think we need to commit to hurting together. I think we need to commit to being angry without torturing ourselves and others for what our opinions and judgments have been over the last 30 years. I think we need to allow ourselves to flow as people so that healing can flow, and let people scream as loud as they need to and turn over all the tables that they need to, and people need to be able to shake their heads as much as they need to, as long as they're hearing and accepting the truth. Lots of good relationships, in my opinion, have been lost because people stop talking. And when we're listening, we're doing a lot more, because a lot of goodness has been lost from Greensboro because we've not been able to listen. One of us seems to win if we're quiet, because our family doesn't die, our friends don't die, we don't go to jail, we still have our jobs and houses and cars, and etc. But when we can't turn to our neighbor, we've actually lost. When our family members are like strangers to us, we've actually lost. We've lost when we can't say what we feel is true without the fear of being cast out or ridiculed or being fired upon by our colleagues, and losing our place in our own community. Then we've actually lost. I would like to say that today we must lose in order to win. In 1979, racist people were able to come into a predominantly black community and launch an attack on people who were demonstrating in a peaceful way. And the community itself did not say a word. I can still see that happen today. I see crack houses, violent gun carriers, stores that sell drug paraphernalia, cigarettes sold to children, small grocery stores who sell 40 ounces and no grocery or very little grocery, redlining in grocery stores and other businesses, boarding houses that are boarding up and not being rented out. These are small and present attacks that are going on in the communities today. And still, the police are not doing anything, the city officials are still sitting by, and the community is not saying the word. When I call the police and say, can you come out and take care of a matter, what they usually do is tell me what my part should be in the whole matter. I'm clear about what my part is, and my part is actually inevitable. But where is your presence? Can I trust you? Can you come visit me and see me and hear me as a strong black woman? And can you stop trying to conform me and make me what you feel I should be so that my community can be right and so that I don't have to call you? I've been able to watch my children have teachers who care a lot more about their education than I have. Second of all, I became active on the PTA board before my first child was old enough to even go to school. You know, I was already at the PTA meetings, and she was not even in pre-K, because I learned that that was a better way to learn about the school and to begin to affect change. So, and then I became involved in community activism because of my children. So my mother was always sick and was not able to come out and do as much. I have been very active as far as my children's education is concerned. But let me just pull away from my own children and say that for them, it's good. But I've seen some children who didn't have a parent that would come to school, whose parent didn't know what to say, whose parent did not know that she should have been on the PTA board before the children ever got to school, whose children are treated any kind of way, and teachers who tell me about why they did them that way. So while my children, I think, are having a better educational experience, I have to say that I'm driving it in some sense. But for children as a whole, it just ain't right. It's not being done the way it needs to be done, and a lot of children are falling through the cracks. And let me also say that we're trying to teach our children too fast. We have to make allowance and space for children who are not getting extra help in the summer and other times because of economical reasons, or there's no school program. And stop, while I'm talking, maybe the county commissioners are listening to me, and the city council, stop taking so much money out of these schools. Leave that money in there. If we can pay your cell phone bill, surely we can pay for somebody to come and help the teachers. We really can do that.
I subscribe to a canon called the Holy Bible, where from Genesis to Revelation, God continues to demand, not suggest, but to demand that God's people fight for justice, that God's people look and work to take care of the widows, and that includes, and the children, and that includes those people who are sitting around right now who do not have a living wage and who cannot feed their children. That includes people who sit on councils and who have all that they need but do not understand that the others also need to be able to pay for doctor bills, have health insurance, and be able to do the kinds of things they want to do. And not only is that necessary, but in the political sense, but even more necessary in the religious community. These are our marching orders. We have no others. Feed the hungry, clothe the naked, take care of the sick, visit the prisoner, take care of the stranger, take in the stranger. These are our marching orders. And if we do not follow them, then it's not surprising that we are unable to lead others to do so. Our police officers are not properly scrutinized by government. And we've got to do better than that because we need them. I need to know, and I need to have my 8-year-old grandson, I need him to respect police officers. But I can't deny that it's frightening to me that I know that child in 8 years will have his life in danger as a practical matter because of racism that exists in our society. Our children today are generally the children of parents who are between the ages of 25 and 50. That is a significant age span because in 1971 we integrated the schools of our country with power and with no longer all deliberate speed. The U.S. Supreme Court said now. And all of a sudden, children were lumped together in schools. And we engaged in the greatest experiment in social adjustment in our country that we've ever had. We did not prepare these children for this experiment. And we sent little babies out to do a job that grown people could not do. And we sent them out there without adequate preparation or protection. And we sent them out there with the idea that when they got to the school, all of a sudden the society that was doing wrong everywhere else was going to start doing right. That was not true. And the end result was a group of people who were wounded. So I'm not the one who has the answer. They do. And we must work with them and provide incentives. I think awards, we need to have award programs. We must develop all kinds of incentives for these parents, because that will be the evidence of how sorry we are. And stop labeling them. They don't care nothing about their children. Yes, they do. I know they care about their children, because when their children come home and complain, instead of acting like we did back in 1971, they go straight down to that schoolhouse and put their fingers in those teachers' faces. And they say, that woman is hostile. These people are hostile. These parents today are fighting the teachers of yesterday. Even though it's not the same situation, the pain is there. And so they go hostile because they're trying to give their children what we never gave them. And we must fix that.